Welcome to Heroes and Humans of Football. My name is Mehreen Khan.
And I'm Simon Cooper. This is the football show where we take the hero and we show you the human.
From Johan Cruyff to Megan Rapinoe.
And from George Best to Kylian Mbappe.
This is the Human Football Podcast. Last week's episode was the first of a two-parter on Cristiano Ronaldo, the son of an alcoholic who becomes football's greatest workaholic. If you haven't already, be sure to check it out.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, in episode 1, we told the story of the rise of the unwanted child from Madeira, the workaholic who made himself the opposite of his alcoholic father. And now we pick up Cristiano Ronaldo's story in 2009 after he has moved from Manchester United to Real Madrid and almost simultaneously has been through an allegation of rape, which he denies, but which will haunt him on and off for the next decade. He signs for Madrid for a world record transfer fee of £80 million, and he's coming to Spain as the antidote to Messi and Barcelona, the new European champions who, as we now know, will grow into arguably the best club team ever.
So Simon, at Manchester United, Cristiano Ronaldo has won a Champions League title and Premier League titles. How does he actually manage to elevate his level once he gets to Real Madrid?
I mean, he arrives at Madrid and he has reached his peak. Peak Cristiano is a workaholic that barely exists even at the top level of football, even at Madrid. So he forces his teammates to try and match his perfectionism every day at training. After training, he places these demands on others, and Barcelona places these demands on Madrid. Messi places these demands on Ronaldo that force everyone to become their best selves, and it's a spectacular sight in the years to come. Ronaldo is an obsessive every day. He has to play every match. So Carlo Ancelotti, who's the Madrid coach for a period during Ronaldo's time there, will sometimes tease him by saying he's going to rest him on the weekend. Ronaldo, when he hears this, is always terrified. He doesn't understand Ancelotti's teasing. Ronaldo is not great with humour. And he thinks, oh my God, there's going to be a match and I'm not going to play. He wouldn't be able to handle it. And then at the last moment, Ancelotti will say, well, I will rest you at 7 o'clock, but you will play at 4 o'clock. And Ronaldo every time is relieved. He feels that a match without him would be like Hamlet without Hamlet, or a Taylor Swift concert without Taylor Swift. He has to be at the centre every day, every minute. He also in this period changes as a footballer because he arrives as somebody who makes runs down the wings. But in around 2014, he has to remake himself. He's warned that he has chronic damage to his left knee. He can't do the kind of long runs anymore. So he converts himself into a kind of scoring centre forward who'll take at most one touch and then boom. Because I don't think anyone in football except maybe Pelé has ever had a harder shot or header than Ronaldo. I mean, he blasts much harder than Messi or Maradona or Cruyff ever could.
Erling Haaland does that too.
Haaland is now up there with that. Ronaldo does not defend. It's not his business. So he and Messi are the only two players, I think, in top-level football who have that exemption. So when their team don't have the ball, Barcelona will always attack through Ronaldo's space, knowing that that is undefended. So he becomes Madrid's greatest asset, but also their defensive weak spot.
How do the Real Madrid fans take to him?
Clearly, he's the number one player. And in some ways, he's in the Madrid tradition because he's a Galactico who'll work all day, who needs to win. So he's like Di Stefano, the kind of original Madrid hero in that way. But in another way, he's not really a Real Madrid player because as at Manchester United, he is in it mostly for himself. Everyone understands that every match he's there to build his own legend. And the team is there for him just to enable that, in his view. He doesn't bleed the shirt. All his career, Ronaldo is an individual playing in a team game. And you see that, when a teammate score, Ronaldo doesn't often bother to cheer. You see that although he becomes Madrid's most experienced as well as highest status player, he doesn't become one of the club captains. He's not entrusted with that role in the collective.
So we've seen that sometimes he's impassive when someone else is scoring. If all the players go off in a huddle, Ronaldo's usually the guy already going back to the centre circle to lay the ball back. But he also looks pissed. Like sometimes he's genuinely annoyed. This is part of this inability to hide how he's actually feeling. So when he wants to break down in tears, he breaks down in tears. And when he wants to scowl at his own teammate scoring a goal, he does. And it makes sense why he runs straight back to the centre circle and starts to play again, because he's got to score, because he's got to keep his stats up, right? So he's always, as you said, not competing against the opposition necessarily, but against history and against Messi's incredible, stellar record. So you just keep going.
And he feels that when he's good, he is better than Messi. But his obsession with Messi is so obvious that that's why fans all over the world will taunt him by chanting Messi at him. And in a sense, he doesn't mind. He wants people to be hostile to him, to jeer him, that G's him up. But he lives this rivalry, which is a strange rivalry because it's never manifest in that you almost never see them in the same photograph. They don't speak about each other the way Mourinho does speak about Guardiola. So neither of them expresses the rivalry. And Ronaldo said it was absurd to compare them because they are as different as a Ferrari and a Porsche. But it's still a rivalry that motivates each one, because imagine if Ronaldo hadn't existed. Messi would have been so far ahead of the pack, he'd have won, like 12 Ballon d'Or. Ronaldo helped Messi and Messi helped Ronaldo. I'm going to come back once more to my interview with Kylian Mbappe about this. Mbappe said the best footballers keep tabs on each other just like he imagined the best bakers do. And Mbappe said, I think Messi has done Ronaldo good and Ronaldo has done Messi good. I think one without the other might not have remained the best far ahead of the others for 15 years. To have an equally good player in the rival team of the same league, I think the motivation is at a maximum, so they need each other. They meet at awards ceremonies, so their field of rivalry is not really the field, it's an awards ceremony. And the Ballon d'Or is, I think, the most important prize in Ronaldo's life, bigger than any team trophy. There were 14 Ballon d'Or awarded between 2008 and 2023. Messi won 8, Ronaldo won 5. Luka Modric won 1. Now, no player in history before them had ever won more than 3, so this is amazing. And there's this documentary by Anthony Wonke where Ronaldo talks about the Ballon d'Or. And he says, it's a card inside an envelope that can change so much. To see Messi win 4 in a row was difficult for me. After he won the second and third, I thought to myself, I'm not coming here again. So it's the moment that he lives for every year. And it's very rare for either of them to talk about their relationship with each other, except to say, oh, it doesn't matter, don't talk about it. But there's this one scene, they're at the draw for the Champions League in 2019 in Monaco. And Messi is interviewed, and of course, Messi is not a man of words. And Ronaldo is sitting behind him. So you have what they call in TV a two-shot of these two guys sitting side by side. Messi's talking. Ronaldo is looking at him intently because Ronaldo really wants this rare opportunity to hear from Messi how Messi thinks of their relationship. Messi says, it's a beautiful rivalry, especially when he's at Madrid. So Messi, as ever, is not very interesting as a speaker. And then Ronaldo adds, I was curious, meaning I was curious to hear what Messi said, because we've shared this stage for 15 years. I don't know if this has ever happened in football. And then Ronaldo says, and of course we have a good relationship. We've not had a dinner together yet, but I hope in the future. And then he trails off because Messi is sitting there without any affect, obviously thinking, I'm not going to ever have dinner with this guy. Why would I?
I only eat supermarket pizzas and you don't.
And I only hang out with people I know already. I'm not somebody who's interested in the big world.
Do you think he felt rebuffed?
I think Ronaldo feels rebuffed because he trails off. Maybe he's embarrassed by the temerity of suggesting that he and Messi have dinner together.
I think that makes him sound like a better man.
I think Messi just lives in his head. And Messi is quite benign to him. And he really wants to talk to Messi about the thing that is in his mind all the time. But Messi's not interested. I mean, the extreme counterexample of two rivals who really have love. I mean, in women's tennis, Chrissy Evert and Martina Navratilova would often call each other in later life at difficult moments of illness or relationship problems and speak heart to heart together, these women who played these ferocious tennis matches against each other.
That's because women are more just emotionally evolved, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think Ronaldo and Messi are not the most emotionally evolved men. So even in that subcategory, they don't score very high.
Yeah, there's levels to this game and they're basically on the bottom rung of it.
I think Messi's view of Ronaldo is that Ronaldo is the footballer he most respects, but that doesn't mean he regarded Ronaldo as an equal.
Dang.
Sorry.
Let's talk about the family or the rearing, because I'm super interested in the bizarre approach that Ronaldo takes to having a family.
And rearing a goat.
And doing it in a genetics first way, I would say. And that's because he has many children, but his first child, his mini-me, and I think clearly the favoured son, is the eldest, Cristiano Jr. He looks like him, he's named after him, and he also plays football.
He's actually called Cristiano Ronaldo Jr., so they went the whole hog.
Quite literally is the mini-me. And Ronaldo, who at this point is kind of variously pictured with women, and obviously we have the slightly, awkward rape allegations, decides, I think pretty much in secret, nobody knows about this, that he is going to have a child with a woman, and that woman will not actually be involved in rearing the goat.
Yeah. So it's not quite clear what type of mother this is. Is it a surrogate mother, which was not allowed in Portugal, and therefore that would be reason for him never to divulge the surrogate's identity, because he says, I'll never say who the mother is? Or is it a woman he had a brief relationship with and then paid to have the kid and then walk away and never interact with her child again, which would seem very odd, but then much in Ronaldo's life is quite odd. Either way, whether it's a surrogate or an ex-partner, the mother is not involved in the rearing of Cristiano Jr.
Now, I'm more liable to think that this is a deliberate decision, so a bit more like a surrogate situation, because the child, Cristiano Jr., is deliberately raised by Cristiano's own mother, so the child's grandmother, and his sisters play some sort of role. So it feels like to me, he thinks that he can create a controlled environment to raise a son who has at least one side very strong genetic code to be as good a footballer as him, and he's trying to give him similar ingredients to the ones that he had, even though they are suboptimal in many ways. Of course, his mother and the way that his mother has raised him, and despite her, difficulties as bringing up a son with an alcoholic father, he thinks he turned out okay.
I don't think he just wants his son to be a great footballer. He wants the upbringing to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because Cristiano is a perfectionist.
He's a lab child.
Yeah, and he thinks, well, no mere randomly selected mother could provide the perfection that I demand in upbringing, just like he demands perfection on the field. But he's had other children as well with mothers who are not involved in the child rearing. And the only people Cristiano seems close to and trusts are A, his mother, and B, to some degree, his siblings. That is the nuclear family that he has stayed in. Even now, he's a father himself.
But he does actually take the step into creating his own nuclear family. And the crucial figure in this is his now partner, Georgina Rodriguez, who he meets at the Gucci store in Madrid. She's a shop assistant. She's a former au pair. She's done various jobs. She's a very, very beautiful woman.
I also have to say that the Gucci shop in Madrid is the kind of natural environment of Cristiano Ronaldo.
It's perfect.
It's like the corner grocery in other people's lives.
But she describes how Cristiano picks her. And he sees her and he plucks her from the Gucci store and they start dating. This is not something that anyone working as a shop assistant in any, despite however high-end a shop it is. And I think Georgina in many ways plays a certain kind of role for Cristiano. She is a woman who is pretty uncomplicated in and of her own right. She's not like one of his former girlfriends, Irina Shayk, who's one of the most beautiful women in the world. She's a model and she's pictured all over the world. Their relationship is sort of like, they are the posh and becks for a while of their day. Georgina's a nobody.
I mean, she's beautiful.
Yes, but she's somebody that he can also rear. And he has done. He's created Georgina into the world's most famous wag, Wives and Girlfriends. She has her own Netflix show called Soy Georgina, I Am Georgina, which is all about Georgina, her incredible life, and the fact that she is now a mother to his brood. So she's a mother to biological children she's given birth to, but also to Cristiano Jr. and other children that he's had with other women. She is now the matriarch figure that he picked out deliberately and has given her this job, this status, this role.
He selected her like a eugenicist, breeding worms in a lab.
A little bit, yes. That's what I think he did, because that's how I think he thinks about his progeny and how the Ronaldos of the next generation are going to be. He also gives her a stipend worth about £85,000 a month to sustain her incredible lifestyle and as a reward for the fact that she is mother of his brood.
Well, she also has to look good. She's got to represent the family as an ambassador.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Soy Georgina. We're now on season 2 on Netflix.
I'll put it on my list. I have not seen her Netflix show.
But it's exactly what you expect. One, she travels all the way across the world with him. So they go from Madrid to Turin, back to Manchester, and she ends up in Saudi. And she goes wherever she's told to go, and she behaves as a perfect, impeccable woman in all scenarios she's allowed to do. As far as I can tell, Georgina has never had any faux pas. She's never made any politically incorrect statements. She's never done anything out of turn. She's almost been lab-grown by Ronaldo himself because she met him when she was super young, and her whole identity is being Georgina.
And then we have the development of Cristiano Ronaldo Jr., who is also being groomed for a project. He trains a lot like his dad. They train together is the sense I get.
My feeling and my sense about Cristiano Jr., mainly from watching his Netflix show, is that he's actually quite a sad little boy. He's a little bit shy. I think he's clearly living in the shadow of his father, but his father is always pushing him to the prominence. So he's the Ronaldo kid that we all know about, right? One, because he's named after him and he looks like him. And since I think the age of 4 or 5, Cristiano Jr. has been posted by his dad on his social media. And the one picture that really stands out to me is one of the little Cristiano Jr., who's about 6 or 7 years old, flexing his muscles. And he's got abs and he has striations on his muscles. His dad writes a caption saying, "Oh, young Cristiano wants to be just like his dad. What do you think?" ? And in some ways it's kind of cute, but in some ways it's really scary.
Well, imagine trying to be like one of the greatest athletes in the history of sport and having that athlete expect you.
Do you have 7-year-olds with abs and six packs?
Actually, one of mine was, he spent most of his time fighting. So he did develop great abs, yeah.
But it's quite a scary sight. And we talk about the 150 push-ups or sit-ups in a minute. But clearly Cristiano Jr. is getting the same training regime that Ronaldo put himself through. I mean, now looking back, there's been questions about whether this is, stunting the poor kid's development, whether you should be having a kid in the gym that much. I don't know if Cristiano Jr. is like taking creatine or whatever. So I guess this means that Cristiano is also on the road to becoming a footballer. I don't even know if he likes football. Sometimes I see pictures of this poor little boy and I think, is this really what he wants? Is he taking any decisions about his life? Or this is just the way that a lab-grown goat is being reared by his dad? And we have to go back, I think, to how Cristiano Sr.'s relationship is with his own father. So we spoke a lot in episode 1 about the pain and the neuralgia that he suffered as being the child of an alcoholic father, and also how he sees his older brother fall into alcoholism. And I mentioned that there's a sense in which he might be fighting his own genetics. He may think that he possibly has an addiction gene and he doesn't want to fall prey to it. And now I think Ronaldo wants to create a generation of super Ronaldos.
Wiping away the shame that he must have felt.
Yeah, with perfect children, a perfect wife, footballers, athletes, and I think he thinks Cristiano Jr. should go on to play football at a very, very high level and be almost as good as him. I mean, it's impossible that is going to happen. I think it's impossible. But I think those are the ambitions that Cristiano has for his son.
When we discuss Ronaldo only as a footballer, we're missing out the other huge segments of his life, which is Ronaldo, the social media star.
Yeah, the hyper celebrity.
He has more social media followers than anyone on earth. And I have realized during this episode that you are one of them.
It's kind of that old adage of like, if you sign Ronaldo to your club, you'll sell shirts.
Yeah.
If you sign Ronaldo to your club, your social media following will 10x overnight, which is exactly what happens when he goes to Saudi Arabia. I'm also thinking about how Ronaldo thinks about what his legacy is. And so you mentioned that Messi is not visual and he's not really verbal. We said Ronaldo was visual, and the main visual footprint that he has left on football is his celebration. Yeah. Is a celebration that he does at Real Madrid as an accident, almost as a joke, because when he scores goals, he celebrates with the Madrid crowd and they all shout, "Sí, yes." And Ronaldo sort of bastardizes the "sí" into a "su," which some people would say shows that, his mental ability is a little bit limited. It's kind of a joke. And he does that kind of star shape. He pushes his arms out and he screams, "Su." So Su becomes, this is like a global phenomenon.
Yeah, the Saudi fan shouted back to him when he scores in Saudi now.
Every single fan shouts it back at him. Other players, and I'm thinking again of Garnacho or Ronaldo fanboys, do the celebration in the corner, and everyone in any football environment, anywhere in the world, knows what to shout. And it's Su.
And this is all over social media. I actually talked to his agency about how he got into social media. This is years ago. And so his agent has always been Jorge Mendes, the great Portuguese agent. And part of Mendes' empire is this business called Polaris Sports. And they manage Ronaldo's image rights, which, obviously even early on, people could see would be quite valuable. But they hadn't really thought about social media much. And then what happened, the Polaris Sports people told me, is around 2008, Facebook executives start saying to them, you should start a Facebook page for Cristiano. And the Facebook people say Cristiano has the potential to get 10 million followers on Facebook. And the Polaris people say, we don't believe you, that's just hype. 10 million people, that's the whole population of Portugal. He's never going to get that. But still, they think maybe it's worth just trying him out on Facebook. So they put him on in 2009. And then a year later, Cristiano Ronaldo Jr.'s birth is announced on Facebook. He now is in the hundreds of millions of Facebook followers, way ahead of Shakira, ahead of Messi, who hardly ever posts anything interesting on any social media, and ahead of Will Smith. I mean, some people say meanly, some of Ronaldo's social media followers are bots, but whatever, from this, he'll never get 10 million Facebook followers. He now has 1 billion followers across all of social media, more than any human in the world. And I want to quote to you the beautiful and moving words of Cristiano's own Instagram account when this was announced. The account wrote, Cristiano does not write his own Instagram posts, I can reveal here. The account wrote, 1 billion followers. This is more than just a number. It's a testament to our shared passion, drive, and love for the game and beyond.
That's so deep.
He doesn't actually have 1 billion different people because a lot of obsessives follow him on every single social media. So there is some double counting. He may not have beaten Messi on the field, but he's beaten him on social media where Messi has a mere 623 million followers. But then Messi never says anything interesting anywhere, certainly not on social media.
Now, a couple of weeks before we're recording, Ronaldo also decides that there's one platform that he hasn't broken yet, which is YouTube. So he joins YouTube. And as mentioned in episode 1, he breaks the all-time record for YouTube subscribers because within 7 days, he has more than 50 million YouTube subscribers. Now, the videos themselves, or the content, whatever you want to call it, is pretty anodyne stuff. Nothing particularly revelatory, but it just shows the reach of the man.
He has 1 billion followers on social media. That's enormous influence. But what does he use it for? He's never seemed to me to be particularly interested in pushing any political or societal stance. I mean, Messi neither. They have this enormous reach, but they don't seem to have causes that they want to promote.
He has spoken about Palestine and has been pro-Palestinian in his stance, talking about the atrocities that happen in Palestine, not most recently since October the 7th, 2023, but in previous years. So that's something that people who, especially now that he's in the Middle East, hold him up as an example of. And of course, as far as I can remember, I don't think Messi's ever waded into something like geopolitics in the Middle East.
Zero. But I mean, Cristiano doesn't like it when people are hurt, and he makes quiet donations to charities. He doesn't publicize them. Does he have a view on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict beyond not wanting Palestinians to be hurt?
But even that statement in a kind of environment where you know that you can get, well, footballers have been cancelled for less, let's put it that way. I don't want to overhype like his political consciousness, but there was the Coca-Cola moment, which was deliberate or not, which was a big deal. The fact that he's sitting in a press conference in the 2022 Qatar World Cup, he has a Coke bottle in front of him. He says, agua.
Yeah, he moves the Coca-Cola bottles that have been put in front of him.
Because he doesn't drink Coca-Cola, of course.
Well, and also he's horrified by it. He thinks this is sugar, this is horrible. I think he feels much more strongly about Coca-Cola than he feels about any political cause.
Coca-Cola makes you fat.
Yeah, and that's terrible. That's the worst thing in the world. And so the company's share price falls by $4 billion through one act of Ronaldo's. That's power.
Soft power.
Soft power, yeah.
Soft drink power.
Now, so far we've talked about Ronaldo as a global figure, which he mostly is. But of course, every footballer is cared about most in their own country. I think that's more or less a rule. And for Portuguese people, there is an unrivaled peak of Ronaldo's career. And it comes in Paris in July 2016, when Ronaldo, although not on the field at the crucial moment, is there with Portugal as they win the country's first ever trophy.
This time, it's France who are playing on home soil in your home city, Paris.
In the final of Euro 2016.
I think, like most people, that France were going to win it because that's what you just expect home countries to do. But they don't. And Simon, you're there watching.
Yeah, it's a very unusual match because you have this clear main character of the night who plays for less than a quarter of the game. So just 9 minutes into the game, Dimitri Payet, the French forward, sails into Ronaldo. Ronaldo goes down screaming and holding his knee. The ref, the Englishman Mark Clattenburg, doesn't even give a free kick. But Ronaldo's hurt. He limps off. On 16 minutes, this is a bit later, he just lays it down on the grass and he weeps, which of course is the classic Ronaldo
motif
response.
of his career.
Yeah. All the teammates huddle around him and there's this brilliant photo of a brown moth on his forehead, like an emissary of death, because they'd left the floodlights on in the stadium the night before as a security measure. So the moths had come to the flame. And so there's a plague of moths on the night. And so you have this image of this moth on this perfect eyebrow.
The angel of death.
And Ronaldo, in his language, is dead because He tries again to play, but on 23 minutes, he throws his captain's armband off, sits down in the grass again, weeping. He gives Nani the armband. So Nani has been kind of summoned to do a job which Cristiano doesn't believe he's really capable of. And I think it might be the first time in Ronaldo's career that almost everyone in the stadium feels bad for him. So the whole Stade de France, the French also rise to applaud as he's carried off. And he's replaced by the kid who grew up with him at Sporting, who was briefly felt to be better than him, Ricardo Quaresma, another aging winger. At this point, Ronaldo is already 33. He's never won anything with Portugal. And it's a very disorientating moment. It's like a Hitchcock movie where the film gets going. This is actually how Psycho is structured, where you think Janet Leigh is going to be the main character, but about 15 minutes into the film, she's killed in the shower. And it's a bit like that. You think, what, the main character's gone? He's been killed in the shower? And so even some French fans probably disappointed at that moment. And you think, okay, poor Ronaldo, he's 33, he's never going to win a prize now because obviously France are going to win. And he's gone.
But main characters don't just limp off the stage.
He limps back on.
Of course.
Because he has to have the starring role. And he thinks, how can I be the star if I'm not playing? I know I'm going to go and coach from the dugout. But not from the dugout, from the touchline so everyone can see me. So for much of the game, you have two Portuguese coaches standing on the touchline, shouting contradictory orders at the players on the field. One is the old man, Fernando Santos, and beside him is Ronaldo, screaming and shouting and pointing. Probably nobody can hear what he's saying, but he's acting the role of coach and of national leader. Portugal barely even try to score after he goes off. They just spend the whole game defending. And they defend very well. And, you know, they play this very negative, time-wasting game. You sort of can understand it. Small country, playing away, lost their star, so brutal tackle. Then, very weirdly, the match is won by pretty much the opposite of Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you remember Eder?
Even with my football knowledge, I struggled to conjure up an image of Eder. I remember the goal, but I had no idea who this guy was.
Well, Eder was born in Guinea-Bissau. At that point, he was a 28-year-old, to put it kindly, journeyman striker. He was a very thin, kind of beanpole figure. He had got a spell at Swansea, in which he had not scored a single goal. Eder would later spend his peak years at Lokomotiv Moscow. So he's not exactly Ronaldo. And, you know, if you're a real Portugal football nerd, then you would have remembered Eder being scowled at by Ronaldo chiefly when they were on the field together. Ronaldo amazed that he had to share turf with somebody so far beneath him. So Eder's always on the bench, starts the final on the bench, but they send him on as a late sub. And then 19 minutes into extra time, Eder somehow escapes from Laurent Koscielny and he shoots from 20 metres. And in one of these bizarre, inexplicable football moments, the ball goes low into Hugo Lloris's bottom corner, and it's the only goal of this very boring game. Who lifts the trophy?
Who puts his shin pads back on? Full kit wanker. Obviously, it's Ronaldo.
Ronaldo, as soon as the game is over...
It's a very John Terry moment, isn't it?
Yeah. He wouldn't like the John Terry comparison.
He wouldn't.
But it's fair. He feels, right, I'm the star of this show.
I've just coached us to...
coached us to victory.
Euro final.
I think it's best to see that trophy as a lifetime achievements award for Portugal and Ronaldo, because Portugal have been a great football country, but not in 2016. They were very poor that tournament. Of their 7 Euro matches, they only won one within 90 minutes, and that was against Wales. It was a really poor team, especially once Ronaldo was off. Comparing Euro 2004, they had Figo, Deco, Paleta, Maniche, incredible team. Today's Portugal, much better with Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Dias. But that's football. You know, you don't win when you should win and you win when you shouldn't win. It's the biggest moment in Portuguese football history. And I would say it's one of the biggest moments in Ronaldo's football history. And he does give, I think, what to him is a moving speech in the changing room afterwards, although it's entirely solipsistic. So this speech is filmed and later distributed on social media. And he speaks with his hand on his heart. And he describes the trophy as if it's an individual prize. He tells his teammates, this is the best day of my life. This is the prize I was still missing in my career. The prize I won thanks to you. I mean, a normal person would say, we won this prize.
Yeah, but just pretend.
Have to at least pretend. And when he finishes what seems to me a very narcissistic speech, the others yell, ooh, which mimic his, I think, primal scream when he won the Ballon d'Or in 2014. So everything in Portuguese history is a reference to Ronaldo now.
So he screams when he's tackled, he screams when he wins a trophy.
Yeah.
I guess that's just, as
he
you said, it's a
screams or
primal.
he cries because he's not a man of words particularly. Although he does give this is probably the longest speech of his career and wasn't written, I suspect, by his agency.
So Cristiano Ronaldo has finally won Portugal's first ever international accolade, the Euro 2016 Championship, a trophy that he considers very much to be a personal accolade. But how do we get from here, the peak of his powers, where he's also won 4 Champions League titles in the last 5 years with Real Madrid, into a world where he will suffer inevitable physical decline? How does he cope with it? And why can't he just stop playing football?
Is he terrified of a life without trying to be the best in the world?
Join us after the break to find out.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
This is a reminder that you're listening to Heroes and Humans of Football with me, Simon Cooper.
And me, Mehreen Khan. Welcome back to Heroes and Humans, where you join us in 2018, where Ronaldo is doing something that Ronaldo does quite often at the end of a season. He's playing in the Champions League final with Real Madrid. And Simon, he calls it quits.
Yeah, so they beat Liverpool in the 2018 final. Straight after the match, Ronaldo says, "It's been very nice playing for Real," meaning I'm off. His salary was 21 million euros, about double Sergio Ramos' salary. But Ronaldo, age 33, wanted a big pay rise, and it was reported that Madrid's offer disgusted him. A club is found that is insane enough to pay a transfer fee of £105 million for a 33-year-old, Juventus. So they massively overreach, and of course he's brilliant in Italy. He becomes the fastest Juve player in history to reach 100 goals in just 131 games. But nobody could ever justify that transfer fee at that age and that salary. And Juventus are sort of starting to implode financially. So by 2021, they need to offload the by now 36-year-old Ronaldo. I mean, this is an age when hardly anyone everyone he grew up with is playing golf. And getting fat. And he still expects to be the best player in the world. You know, he is still brilliant, and it seems that Manchester City want him. City perhaps cannily pull out at the last minute, and Alex Ferguson and others persuade him to make a sentimental return to Manchester United.
It's not quite like that, though, is it? I mean, they panic because there are rumours, either true or not, we don't know how real the interest was, that Ronaldo's going to City. City at this point are now the dominant team in English football, and United just can't suffer the humiliation as an institution to watch their legend, the GOAT that they reared, move to their rival club, which will just be the icing of the passing of the torch of the shit take that is Manchester United.
You've mixed so many metaphors there. I want to preserve that moment.
They do it out of sheer desperation because it's humiliating. It will be reputationally embarrassing for Ronaldo to go play for City. Ronaldo doesn't care. He'd play for City.
Yeah, he would play for anyone. In fact, I think it ends being humiliating for United. So they bring him back, and it's as if time has been rolled back. It's 18 years since he first arrived at United. He's 36, but there's a pretense that, nothing has changed. They give him the number 7 shirt back because Edinson Cavani is persuaded to take number 21 instead.
He's also like 42 at this point, Cavani.
And Ronaldo thinks, I'm only 36 and nothing has changed. It's like I'm 23. I'm going to play football forever because I've created the perfect human body. And it's not just him. There's a generation of sporting greats in his generation who seem to have defied aging because, of course, everyone is more professional, nutrition is better, medical care is better. So Roger Federer and Serena Williams will play to around 40. LeBron James is still going and will go much longer than that. Even Messi, who never looked after his body like Cristiano did, still great at 37. Tom Brady, the NFL quarterback, wins a Super Bowl age 43. So Ronaldo thinks, yeah, of course, I'm going to go forever.
I think there's also a sense that he's coming into a team where new players were attracted to Manchester United that Ronaldo was a part of, that Rooney was a part of, the one that was synonymous with elitism, with quality, with greatness. And now he's entering an environment where he's looking around the changing rooms and the players are just not on the level. So they think he's a reminder, a very nostalgic reminder of what we used to be. And he needs to inculcate into these kids that Manchester United used to be the kind of club that the great Cristiano played for. But when Ronaldo gets to United, he realises that without Sir Alex, there's a rot that is set in. And he looks around and he's pissed off. He's annoyed about how, one, decrepit the stadium is, how Carrington hasn't changed one jot in the last 16 years, how the standards have been allowed to slip. And I think he finds it a personal affront against him because he, the great Cristiano, was once at this great club. And now look what's happened.
Also, it shows that he's just as ambitious in his late 30s as he always was, which is very strange because most footballers, especially as they win things and then they feel their body declining, they accept they can't be as good as they were, most of them lose ambition. And by the end, they're able to stop because they don't really care that much anymore. But not him. For him, even at 36, 37, every defeat is a personal insult. Every teammate's failure to give him a cross that he could score on is a tragedy. And every match, however unimportant, he puts this almost unbearable pressure on himself. And then when Erik ten Hag arrives as manager, he has these newfangled ideas about pressing, and he's handed this striker in his late 30s who doesn't do defending. And Ten Hag thinks, no way. And Ronaldo ends up on the bench, and that is an unbearable humiliation. Ronaldo cannot ever be on the bench. And meanwhile, you have this horrible event in his personal life. So Georgina has twins in 2022, a boy and a girl, and the son dies at birth. And Ronaldo has said that this was the most difficult moment of his life. And he describes her arriving home and the other children asking, where is the other baby? And Ronaldo and Gio, as he calls Georgina, they don't know what to say. And after a week, Ronaldo says, let's be upfront. Let's be honest with the kids. And let's say that Angel, his name, i.e. Angel, has gone to heaven. And he keeps his son's ashes in a chapel in his basement where he also keeps his dad's ashes. His dad had died in 2005 after his liver gave in. And Cristiano has said, his ashes are with me like my daddy. They are here in the house. I have a small church downstairs, a chapel, and I keep my daddy and my son there. I mean, this is unbearable. And after that tragedy, he's even applauded at Arsenal and at Liverpool by the fans there. But I think that the combination of this private disaster and then the public humiliation of being benched is too much. And he's done with United, and he gives this very calculated interview to Piers Morgan on Talk TV, where he kind of lays into the club. And United are delighted because they wanted rid of him, but they didn't want to pay him off. And so now he leaves without a payoff. And then he goes to another terrible humiliation, which is the World Cup 2022, which I think is probably the lowest point of his career because two dreadful things happen. One is finally Portugal dare drop him. I think the ultimate disaster is that his replacement, the young Gonçalo Ramos, making his first international start, scores a hat-trick and Portugal wins 6-1. I mean, how can you possibly deal with something so awful?
I think there are constantly cameras that keep panning over to him as well, and he's impassive at best.
It's another game where Ronaldo doesn't play, like in the Euro 2016 final where he goes off after 23 minutes, but he's the main character. And then they play Morocco, he starts on the bench again, and they lose. And that, I think, may have ended his World Cup history. He played 8 knockout games at World Cups and never scored a goal.
Wow.
And you might say, okay, small country, you can't expect Portugal to win World Cups. But he doesn't see it that way at all. He thinks, I'm playing, so obviously we should be winning World Cups. So for him, the World Cups are an immense disappointment, maybe even a personal failure, but I'm not sure he can absorb the idea of personal failure. I think it must be someone else's fault. And then the World Cup ends after his departure with another disaster for him because Messi wins.
Yeah, that's got to be the real.
How can you deal with that?
The real blow.
Yeah.
The whole world is now bowing down to Messi. The one blot on potentially on Messi's career has now been ticked.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about Ronaldo anymore.
Except to mock him, which is where we come back to what we said right at the beginning of episode 1, that he is a footballer partly because he takes himself so immensely seriously that people irresistibly want to mock because his self-importance is so grandiose that you can't but tease it.
So no one is talking about Ronaldo and everyone is talking about Messi at the end of 2022. But it doesn't take that long for Ronaldo to get back into the headlines and to make a stupendous career decision where he will consider himself to be a trailblazer because he becomes the biggest scalp ever claimed by the Saudi Pro League. He ends up at Al Nassr,
where they pay him the highest salary ever in the history of football, 200 million euros a year. Messi was actually offered more to play in Saudi, but Messi didn't feel like it. This is an interesting difference. They're both sort of coming to the end of their top career. Messi quite willingly. Messi wants to leave Europe and be done. Ronaldo is pushed out of Europe. Messi thinks, what I want now is to live in Miami. I'll earn less there than in Saudi, but I want to be in Miami. Spanish speaking, there's a beach. I'll go with my mates, Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets. And Ronaldo thinks, I'm going to go to Saudi for the biggest salary ever, alone, with my family.
Yeah.
And so he's age 39. According to Forbes, at this point, he's the best paid athlete on earth.
More than the NBA stars and LeBron, which is incredible for footballers to achieve.
Yeah, $260 million are his annual earnings, according to Forbes. Number one in the world in sport for the second year running. Cristiano goes to this league that only he takes seriously. I think at one point he says it's better than the French league. He scores a phenomenal amount of goals, although only he is still counting.
And no one can watch them because they're not broadcast anywhere. You have to watch them on social media.
And I'm not sure that many people do. But he's still running to the corner flag, doing that star shape and shouting "shoo" to...
Not shoe.
Say it.
Sue.
And
Man said shoe.
echoed by the Saudi fans. But the occasional reports out of Saudi suggest he has not fully absorbed Saudi
Cultural mores.
So twice he gets into trouble for appearing to grab his crotch and thrust it at fans who are doing what fans all over the world do, which is singing Messi at him. After one of the crotch-grabbing incidents, Al Nassr issue a statement that the Portuguese international had sustained a groin injury during the match. And the club statement says, this is confirmed information. So I think we have to accept that it's true. He had a groin injury, that's why he was cupping his...
Yeah.
He was grabbing his crotch. There's an Athletic article about his life in Saudi, which feels desperately sad. So what does he do there? He visits historic sites paid for by the Saudi tourist authorities. He opened the, quote, CR7 Signature Museum at Boulevard World.
I mean, he's ultimately just a very, very highly paid figurehead and acceptable face for Saudi sport, right?
He's a sports washer.
Yep.
So he meets Crown Prince MBS, the murderous MBS, about whom we did an episode. MBS, the most influential man in football.
That doesn't like football.
Who doesn't like football?
What I do find remarkable is that he's still getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, maintaining 0% body fat, eating incredibly well, fantastically disciplined, and he has to play in the Saudi league where nothing is really at stake.
Well, Wayne Rooney has said, you know, you have to accept decline. You have to accept that you're past it, that the end has come. Rooney obviously declined very young and said, look, I dealt with it. And Ronaldo's response was something like, well, Rooney is ugly and I'm beautiful.
Have you seen the two of them next to each other?
Well, yeah, Rooney looks like he's 64 and
64
Ronaldo
stone.
looks like he's 27.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, Euro 2024 is a real low. He goes there, he plays in a wonderful Portuguese team. He's the worst player, age 39, in a team that has great attacking talent. So everyone can see it. He stands in the penalty area, he calls for the ball, he fluffs it every time. And it's not just that his speed and power have gone, his coordination has also deteriorated with age. It's totally normal. Everyone's coordination gets worse, but deal with it, man. Accept it.
It's the dealing with it, I think, that is a problem. So that penalty that he misses in extra time
Against Slovenia,
a team that he should be beating, even though Jan Oblak is in goal, and Jan Oblak is absolutely incredible.
He is, yeah.
Ronaldo's inability to hide how he's feeling, the fact that he collapses into tears.
Well, he also makes himself the star of the scene because he's missed a penalty and most people just melt away. But he thinks, no, I am the central character and I have to cry for 7 minutes. I mean, what I want to know is there nobody who dares tell him, say, look, kid, it's over, or just don't take free kicks anymore?
Or penalties.
We spoke to Raquel Vaz Pinto, our Portuguese football expert and political science professor, weirdly, about how even Portuguese fans are getting a bit impatient. Here's Raquel.
I don't think we talk that much about it. I think it's perhaps something that many people think, but not many people actually say it. You know, perhaps it's our patriotic, vein, whatever, regarding him. I think it's still a tough issue. He will be 40 on the 5th of February because he was born in 1985. I would have preferred that he would have retired in his prime because he has already won his place in our gallery of heroes.
But you're saying he's too much of a national hero for people to publicly criticize comfortably?
No, you do find it, but it's not very common yet. But the longer it takes, the more the years, the days, the months, yes.
But then after that Euro, there does seem to have been a dawning of recognition in him that he's not going to be a great player forever. He's starting to realize, I think, that he's lost it. And now in August, he suddenly began talking about retiring. He said probably at Al Nassr in 2 or 3 years. And he says, look, I'm still an asset to Portugal, but when the time comes, I'll move on. If I feel like I'm no longer contributing anything, I'll be the first to leave.
That's just not true.
I think that ship has sailed. And so he's starting to come to terms with decline happening even to him.
So in the final parts of our episodes, we discuss the legacy of our figure. And if Cristiano was here in the studio with us, he'd be like, great, now's the time to talk about why I am the GOAT, the greatest of all time, because that, in his own head, is the legacy that he has left on football. Simon, what do you think? I think we kind of already know what you think.
I'm just marveling at the image of Ronaldo being here in the studio with us discussing whether he is the GOAT.
He'd be like, Sue.
Well, I tackled this at the Financial Times with our newspaper's resident data whiz, the incredible John Byrne Murdoch. And John put together all the data to answer the GOAT question. And the answer is, Ronaldo is not the GOAT. Messi is the GOAT. But if you measure footballers week in, week out, Ronaldo is the second most accomplished player in football history. You know, they've had longer and greater careers than any great players between them in terms of just going on at the top forever. If you compare them to all the footballers who ever played from, say, about 1970 on, when we have proper stats, they tower over everyone else for goals. There is nobody close. And so it's absurd for people to mock Ronaldo by saying he's not as good as Messi. Yes, he isn't as good as Messi. But if Ronaldo had been born in 1970 or 1980, he would have been the best player of his era by far. A much more productive player than even great players like Platini or Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who won Ballon d'Or. I mean, if you think that people like Kevin Keegan, Michael Owen, Alan Simonsen, good players, won Ballon d'Or, I mean, these
This is
people,
a different level.
Yeah, different level, can't stand in the shadow of Ronaldo. So without Messi, Ronaldo is the GOAT. But his problem is that Messi existed.
So the way that I see the Messi-Ronaldo question, when you ask normies about it, not footballers, because they always say, both. If you're a young kind of man that looks at Ronaldo's sort of super fit, alpha male type, high value man, you're more attracted to a Ronaldo kind of character. And if you're somebody who I think is more attracted to the natural, aesthetic, self-effacing, slightly more modest character types, then you're a bit more attracted to Messi. So I think they've come to represent something much bigger than just where they sit on the stats or Real Madrid, Barcelona. There's something about the kind of archetypes of men that different types of men are attracted to, which decide whether they fall on Ronaldo or whether they fall on Messi.
Yeah, I mean, are you a hyper-ambitious workaholic who's in the gym at 6 a.m. and is proud of everything you've achieved? Yeah. You're more the Ronaldo type of person.
And we are in a world where there is a fetishization of the high performance, right? So Ronaldo's kind of a lodestar for people outside of football and outside of sport who just think working hard and meritocracy and grinding and hustle culture, he is the patron saint of that particular way of thinking about your life and your career.
And he's totally self-made. I mean, he came from a dysfunctional family in more or less the poorest outpost of Europe. Messi comes from a fairly functional family, and his family, I would say, were Argentinian, lower middle class.
So he becomes a self-made man, which means that his mother's decision to name him after Ronald Reagan was probably a pretty good one.
Yeah. Ronald Reagan was also the son of an alcoholic from the middle of nowhere in the Midwest who becomes a Hollywood star and president, and who told the myth of the self-made man so beautifully. I guess Ronaldo Reagan and Cristiano Ronaldo are brothers.
Cristiano Ronaldo, neoliberal superstar.
And also in this Instagram era of looks. I mean, Ronaldo always looks fantastic and spends a lot of effort looking fantastic. So he's made for social media in a way that Messi never really cared to be.
Yes, but we need to give him credit because because most of it just stops there. With most celebrities, it just stops at the narcissism, and he's talented. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. Managed to become one of the most successful practitioners of the world's biggest sport where there's competition everywhere. And he's managed to get to the top.
And the other amazing achievement is that he stayed at the top for 15 years. Now, his problem is that he thinks he can stay at the top for 20 years, which he can't. So from about 2020, he's no longer there, but he thinks he is there. And that's where you get that gap between self-understanding and the reality, which is absurd.
Which we saw with the Mourinho case.
Yeah,
and even some parts of it with Wenger too, like this inability to walk away when you just... Honestly, he's developed nothing else in his life beyond football, so what the hell is he going to do with himself?
I think he's going to fall into what they call a massive black hole afterwards.
I think he's going to become an absolute Tiger Dad. Is that a thing?
It is, yes.
He's going to become a soccer dad on speed.
A poor Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. if he doesn't succeed.
Yeah.
I don't know how either of them will cope with that. Would we like to hang out with him?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's the most famous person in the whole world.
Journalistically, it would be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, what are we saying? As a personal chill or a work chill?
Yeah, personal chill. I mean, as a journalist, I would be very interested in spending time close up with Ronaldo. As a person, no.
I want him to do the same. Also, we need to talk about the fact that I want to talk to him because I'm genuinely convinced that he might be turning Muslim soon. So I might want to accelerate that
What's
process.
your evidence? I mean,
So my favourite genre in this is Ronaldo Muslim conspiracy theory is that when he takes free kicks and the cameras zone in on his face, he says Bismillah. So he says in the name of God. And then he does a big exhale and then he hits
blasts
the ball
over the bar.
Yeah, he does. He does this brilliant celebration once where he scored a goal. So he actually gets down into prostration. So he does the Muslim.
He does the Muslim prayer.
And then he gets up and he does the cross sign over himself just to cover all of his bases, which I respect it. I mean, the man is a true monotheist.
What do they call that? That's syncretic religion.
Give it a few more years. I think Ronaldo, instead of being named after Ronald Reagan, maybe we could name him after...
MBS.
Exactly. Would you like to hang out with him?
I mean, of course, I'd love to write the article of I spent a day with Cristiano. I think I would write it ironically. Some people say I try to do everything ironically, which is one of my many shortcomings. This is on my wife's list. She'd probably put it in the top 20 shortcomings.
Would your wife want to meet Ronaldo?
She's never, in fact, she has said that she doesn't like him. She doesn't like the style.
Interesting.
May I quote my wife? I mean, one should never quote one's partner without their permission, but I distinctly remember her saying, objectively, Messi is clearly the better person.
Damn, what a damning indictment. Maybe you just fill her head with propaganda.
When the kids were young, obviously there was some desire to purchase Ronaldo and or Messi shirts. So that's when we got into it, because any children growing up in the 21st century with any interest in football, there is going to be the dreadful moment when one of your children wants a Cristiano Ronaldo shirt. And then you have to look deep into your own heart and essentially choose your parenting philosophy. Can they have a Ronaldo top?
And in your case, the answer was?
Yes, but also educate them that this is not a good role model. This is not who you want to be later.
Why not? If you work really, really hard, you can be anything you want to achieve.
Do I want my children to be totally humorless narcissists?
But they're going to be anyway just because they're born in the 2000s. I'm sorry.
God. What would he have been without football?
So if we're going to put him into that mould of the entire, emigre generation of young Portuguese who had to leave after the financial crisis, I feel like, the hustle mentality is strong. I could see him doing something vaguely entrepreneurial, maybe. A chain of gyms, a great PT brand, set up his own gyms.
Yes, personal trainer.
Yeah.
Working in someone else's gym. You would have gone to your local gym and you would have been assigned a personal trainer, a Portuguese person called Cristiano.
Yeah, named after Ronald Reagan.
Who speaks good English.
Not bad English.
Yeah. And while you're doing because you do these massive strength exercises, right? He would be looking at himself in the mirror. Thank you for listening to Heroes and Humans of Football. For more information, go to our website at heroesandhumans.com.
And follow us at Heroes and Humans on all social platforms. Next week's episode is on Megan Rapinoe, the most loved and hated women's footballer in the world. Be sure to check it out. This show was developed by Immaterial and produced by One Fine Play. Matt Cheney is the series producer. Kazra Firuzia is the editor and producer. We have been your hosts, Mehreen Khan
and Simon Cooper.
And this has been Heroes and Humans of Football.